Every child of the river kingdoms learns to read two kinds of numbers before they can even write their own names. The tally of grain in the granaries, and the glyphs that glow on the face of the great clock at the world's center. Grain keeps a city-state alive from season to season, but the clock determines whether the city survives the century. It stands higher than the tallest lighthouse, fashioned from obsidian gears and ribs of bronze that never tarnish, and its hands sweep across a disk of dark stone veined with living fire. No engraver remembers who first carved the digits, yet they burn night and day, counting down to an hour no chronologer can predict. When the lowest hand completes a full revolution, an interval of exactly 100 solar years, the clock slows, groans like a wounded colossus, and stops for a single night. That is the moment the Covenant calls for flesh. A human sacrifice must be offered on the plinth below the pendulum, blood spilled on the anvil of the mechanism, or the clock, so say the records, will shatter its own housings at dawn, and the catastrophe hidden in its hollow heart will pour out upon the earth. No historian can say whether the threat is real, but the oldest chronicles agree on the aftermath of refusal. There was once a century, 900 years ago, when the city-state of Armath did not submit. They marshaled scholars instead of victims, argued that the Covenant had run its course, that humanity had matured beyond terror. At sunrise, the clock struck 13 instead of 12, and tremors leveled Armath's aqueducts. Sickness bloomed in the rubble, and every newborn for 3 decades carried bones like glass. No envoy from Armath has walked in the convocation since, so every 100th year, the river kingdoms send their processions, each hoping their rival will be the one to pay the ultimate tariff. This turning of the century, the 65th since counting began, belonged until a month ago to Viridian. I know because I am Viridian's warden, sworn to guard the chosen sacrifice until the hour of offering. The task fell to me when my predecessor choked on smoke in the palace fires, a casualty of the last border war. Our sacrifice, a boy named Callan of the Apple District, should have traveled beneath my escort, but another city-state marches too, and their armies beat Viridian's legions to the clock by 4 dawns. The elders now whisper that the curse will be ours all the same if we fail to present the victim before the pendulum halts. And so the burden of the century walks beside me, still breathing, still alive, even as the sands in the lower glass approach zero. We make camp on the Plain of Echoes, 40 miles from the tower. Kalen sits on the wagon tongue, carving spirals into a peach pit with my belt knife. He hums something that might be a lullaby, and every so often he glances up to the horizon, where the clock's silhouette gnaws a notch from the moon. "You aren't afraid," I say, because talking is easier than silence. He shrugs. "Father says fear is a short rope. The more you pull, the tighter it gets." "And what do you think?" "I think ropes can be cut." The boy is 12. He should be bragging about tree frogs, not discussing mortality, but the clock erodes childhood. It measures centuries, yet devours minutes. That night, the air shivers with distant drums. Torchlight flickers across the prairie, the banners of Argentum, Viridian's old rival. I know their plan. Every warden studies the playbook. Argentum will attempt to offer not one of their own, but one of ours. If they succeed, the burden lifts from them for the next cycle, and Viridian's name will be etched in the ledger of shame. Morning brings dust clouds where hooves have churned the grass to powder. Our outriders have not returned. I tighten the guard around Cadlin, 5 veterans and a pair of sullen magisters capable of bending wind. We ride hard until twilight, the colossal clock swelling in our sight like a dark moon nailed to the earth. Its bells toll once each sunset, during the final month, echoes booming across the plain. Tonight, they strike with a hollow timbre, as though the cavern behind the metal has swallowed sound itself. We reach the field of shards 2 nights before zero. Here, the armies of 8 city-states pitch opposing rings, each encampment a spiked shell around the clock. Flags crack, kettles steam, and spies slip between rows of pikes. Nobody sleeps. At any hour, a faction might raid another, snatch a sacrifice, and withdraw to safety before trumpets call parley. It is a savage dance, but we have all agreed to it rather than face annihilation. If annihilation it truly is. Kalen stands atop a broken plinth where an emperor once vowed to end the covenant, and he gazes at the encampments fanned around him like petals on a rotting blossom. They're all here for me, aren't they? Not just you, I answer. There are 7 others. Do they want to live? Yes. Do they deserve it more than I do? I hesitate. Deserving we leave to the clock. The boy lifts the peach pit to the moonlight. The grooves he carved resemble the glyph for zero. He closes his fingers and drops the pit into his pocket. Ropes can be cut, he repeats, perhaps to himself. Minutes after dawn, a delegation from Argentum approaches under white flags. I meet them halfway, hand on sword, Kalen nowhere in sight. The envoy is a slender woman in mercury plate, silver mask hiding everything but her eyes. She offers formal greetings, then says, "Viridian is late. The ledger declares your failure." "The 0 hour has not struck," I answer. "Your victim must be presented to the keepers for inspection 24 hours before. You are behind schedule." I spit in the dust. Argentum once prided itself on arithmetic. "Count again, Silverface." Her eyes smolder. "Very well. You have until the high sun. But know this, our offering has been weighed and accepted. Should you falter, the debt becomes yours alone." I return to camp seething, but fury doesn't move the hour hand. It slips onward of its own tyrannical will. By noon, we must produce Kalin for the pointing over, a grim ceremony where 8 keepers, one appointed by each city, impartial in theory, verify that each sacrifice bears no magical protection, no poison, no hidden blades. They do not check for willingness. The covenant demands only life, not consent. Callan surprises me by preparing himself. He washes in the river, braids his hair with reeds, and dons the ceremonial white shift. When the magisters apply the sedative balm to his wrists, he refuses. "I'll walk conscious," he declares. "Why court pain?" the junior magister asks. "So I can remember what I walked toward," he says. "And why?" I escort him to the obsidian dais, where the other 7 victims stand in a line. They are young, as always. Youth is considered more potent by the keepers, though nobody recalls which generation decided that. A girl from the desert city of Andrel nods to Callan. A stoic boy from Pinion avoids everyone's gaze. In another world, they might have been playmates. Keepers turn them one by one, tracing sigils across shoulder blades that glow momentarily, then fade. When the inspector reaches Callan, she hesitates. "Where is this child's mark?" "He was born unbranded," I say. "No one is born unbranded. In Viridian, foundlings may choose their own house when they reach maturity. Our law forbids claim-stamping babes." The keeper's mouth pinches, but she lets it pass. She writes an addendum on the parchment. It feels ominous, as though an extra weight has been hung around the boy's neck. Ceremony completed. The victims are escorted back, but not to their native camps. Tradition holds them in the clock's shadow for the last night, guarded by keepers who claim neutrality. In practice, a city's assassin might still slip through. Diplomacy has sharp elbows. I cannot rest. I pace the palisade, gaze forever drawn to the clock face. Its longest hand now ticks once an hour, a ponderous thud that travels through soil like heartbeats in stone. Between pulses, the air seems to hold its breath. Shortly before midnight, someone sets the tents of pinyon aflame. Screams carry on the wind. Metal clashes on metal. In the confusion, a shadow looses arrows toward the keeper's pavilion, hoping to fell a tethered sacrifice and tilt the odds. I run, blade drawn, cutting through smoke. By the time I arrive, the attackers are gone, 3 keepers gutted, and the sacrifice from Pinion lies bleeding from a snapped arrow shaft. He sputters, tries to speak. His lifeblood pools on the marble. A dead sacrifice cannot fulfill the covenant. His loss means the clock will still thirst at dawn. The shortage must be answered. The numbers must balance. Diplomats scramble to hammer last-minute bargains. 2 victims from one city could exempt another for 2 cycles, say. But none can trust an enemy's promise, not when centuries ride the stake. The keepers decide. The remaining 7 victims stay valid, but 1 more must be found before dawn. Otherwise, 0-hour proceeds unappeased. Which city will pay? Argentum moves first. Their captain accuses Viridian, demands Kalen's twin be provided. Never mind the fact he has no sibling. Viridian's Archon counters that the arrow feathers bore Argentum's crest. Obviously a false flag. Pinion, mourning their lost boy, renounces both arguments and unsheathes steel. The field of shards edges toward slaughter. I slip into the keeper's pavilion, where Kalen sits chained to a pillar of black basalt. He looks up, eyes dry, as though he were waiting for me. Another must die, I tell him. Not instead of you, alongside. They will choose by dawn. Will it be you? He asks, voice almost curious. My life is pledged to guard you. And if letting me go saved thousands, the covenant doesn't bend. He nods, unperturbed. Warden, untie me. I cannot. You can. He leans forward. If the rope tightens, cut it. Outside, the clock tolls. 1 hour till morning. I kneel, study the chains. They are wrought of the same bronze as the gears, rumored unbreakable without the forge fire that made them. Each link is etched with wards to mute sorcery. Even if I had the key, removing Kalen means treason. Yet I am less certain than ever that obedience upholds anything but ritualized fear. Why do you want freedom now? I whisper. So I can stand beneath the pendulum awake and willing, he says. That may matter. It never has. Maybe never was waiting for now. There is a steadiness to him that blunts my doubts. I look at the carvings on the pillar. Ancient runes, repeating one symbol. The empty circle. 0. I draw my dagger. Its point scratches bronze with a thin, whining cry. Sparks leap. The warding lines flare, then dim. The chain doesn't yield. Footsteps crunch outside. I hide the knife. Step away as a keeper enters with 2 guards from Argentum. The keeper announces, by draw of lots, the additional sacrifice shall be selected from Viridian. Present another victim, or relinquish the boy. My pulse roars. This is unlawful. The covenant is the only law tonight. Comply. They advance. I could fight, but 3 armored men inside a tent is suicide. Worse, it endangers Kalen. I bow and lead them out, promising to fetch a new victim. They follow, sealing the flap. Then I sprint between stakes, past startled soldiers, until I reach Viridian's quarter. The Archon is already awake, quills scratching treaties few will honor. Find me another child, he orders without looking up. Any orphan will do. Stop this, I say. We don't know what the clock truly demands. We know defiance breeds plagues. Plagues we could cure with reason, not blood. He fixes me with red-rimmed eyes. Reason won us the charnel fields of Armath. Bind a child. I turn and walk out. Somewhere beyond torches, soldiers rouse sleeping families. Mothers weep as lists are tallied. I drift among them, sword sheathed, hands empty. Midnight's final toll resonates. 30 minutes. The keepers light the path of submission, a corridor of braziers from pavilion to tower. The obsidian doors at the clock's base grind apart, exhaling wind that smells of old thunder. I return to the tent. The guards tense. I raise empty palms. Another from Viridian has been chosen, I lie. They're bringing her. Stand relieved. The keeper frowns. I received no word. Communication moves slow within chaos. He gestures. The guards step outside cautiously. I step inside fully, letting the flap fall. Then I draw my sword and cut Kalen's chains at the manacles, not the pillar. The shards fall ringing like chimes. We dash through canvas shadows. I loop the chains around his shoulders like a stole. At a distance, in torchlight, they might appear still fastened. We intersect the path of submission, just as a contingent of Argentum soldiers advance, escorting their own sacrifice, wrists raw from irons. Wind lashes cloaks, sparks ride eddies toward the tower. Kalen looks up. How long? Minutes. The soldiers file into the tower's maw. The keepers herd the other victims, 6 now, across black marble. The additional orphan Viridian was to provide has not materialized. Confusion needles the ranks. A keeper spots us. There is the missing boy. Where's the second? I push Kalen gently forward. He will answer. Inside, the tower's guts glimmer. Cogs bigger than cathedrals, wheels rotating on lubricants that smell like rain on ash. Lightning dances along copper veins in the walls. In the central chamber, the pendulum, a teardrop of tempered glass, hangs by cables no thicker than vines, yet taut as fate. Beneath it gapes a circular grate, stained dark by centuries of offerings. The victims are positioned at equidistant spokes around the grate. Each chain is clipped to a ring, forcing kneeling posture. Kalen stands instead, chains draped but free. Gasps ripple. I unsheathe my sword, pointed at the nearest keeper. The covenant is satisfied, I declare. 7 living hearts, blood not yet spilled. Down on your knees, Warden, a captain commands. Kalen raises his voice, small yet firm. Let the clock decide. The pendulum falters mid-swing, as though hearing him. A murmur. The countdown windows above the grate flicker. Go woo-woo. Then stall. The world balances upon a hair. Cut the rope, Kalen says again, staring at me. Understanding dawns like the sun over ruins. Sacrifice is not obedience. Sacrifice is choice. The covenant, if it ever meant anything, might require one willing life. 900 years we've offered victims, never volunteers. I sheath my blade. My knees ache, but I step toward the grate. I am the warden, I say. My duty is to protect my charge. I choose to fulfill that duty by trading my life for his. Shouts erupt, insults, warnings, threats, but nobody strikes. Tradition has no scripture for this breach. I unbuckle mail, let it clang onto stone. Kalen watches, tears streaking clean paths through grime. I grip the chain upon my chest, the badge of my office, and wrap it twice around my wrists. Then I kneel at the 7th ring. Bind me, I command, a stunned keeper. Reflex overrides shock. He obeys. The numbers above blink, hesitate, then resume. This time they count upward. 0 to 1, 0 to 2. The pendulum hums, but lifts, retracting into shadow. Gears reverse. Somewhere high above, a bell peals, not doom but dawning. The floor beneath the grate blossoms open like petals. Instead of abyss, a stair reveals, spiraling downward. Warm light floods upward, smelling of cedar and first rain. A voice, not heard but felt, fills the chamber, older than words, yet intimate as lullaby. Balance restored, witness, remember, rebuild. My bonds dissolve. I stagger to my feet. The other sacrifices stand too, chains dropping like husks. Kalen smiles, incandescent. Outside, soldiers expect the end of the world. Instead, the clock's hands melt into gold dust that falls like gentle snow. Banners lower in awe. Warriors kneel. I escort the 7 children down the new stair. We emerge into dawn on the tower's eastern balcony, overlooking a plain reborn. The fractured stones of the field of shards knit themselves into green mosaic. Rivers carve fresh courses where trenches gaped. Sunlight bleeds rosy on the horizon, as if the sky itself has been learning to breathe for centuries. Behind us, the clock's facade reshapes, becoming a garden wall. Vines bud along its curves, blooming with silver flowers, whose petals display the symbol for infinity. A sideways 8, possible futures, looping forever. Kalen steps to the parapet. His carved peach pit lies in his palm. He tosses it into soil at the wall's base. A seed for tomorrow, he murmurs. I think of ropes, a fear's short leash, of moments where edge meets choice. The covenant of blood has ended. Something else has begun, and it demands not sacrifices but stewards. Down on the plain, soldiers from once warring cities lay aside glaives and crossbows, gazing at the miraculous transformation. Hushed voices ask what price was paid. I descend the steps to speak. I will tell them a story. How a boy refused chains, how a warden found a different courage, how the clock that ruled centuries awaited not murdered innocence, but a willing heart. Perhaps they will believe, perhaps not. Yet the proof stands blooming behind me, and the morning smells of peach blossom. For the first time anyone alive can remember, the world is not counting down, it is counting forward.